So last week when I did the BBC about responsibility and blame and how we usually associate blame, we get angry when we blame people and it's their fault and there's an they're the sole one responsible, or if we blame ourselves, we get angry at ourselves, we're the sole one responsible, and discriminated between that and everybody involved in a situation accepting responsibility for their part in it. And in that way, we just banish the whole idea of fault, and with that, we don't get involved in getting angry at other people. Okay. That doesn't mean we say everything's okay and do what you want, but, and we still can discern things, but we don't have to get angry when we're doing so. So the person who had asked the question that sparked that BBC wrote back again and said it was very helpful to have that piece about sorting out the issue of responsibility from the issue of having to assign blame and to criticize other people. Okay? So she said that's huge. And then she said, when I took a moment to begin to look through responsibility, though, it seemed endless. All the interdependent causes and conditions leading to one action. Where does one ever assign a single moment to the moment a mistake was made? Okay, so even when you're looking at, okay, what's my responsibility, and you start looking at the causes and conditions that made us act in a certain way or say a certain thing, can you ever find one initial thing that to say, this is it, this started the whole thing? Yeah. Now, when we look in our life, we can find certain decisions that were like really momentous, that really changed the course very drastically. But even behind those, when you start seeing, well, why did I make that decision or do that action at that moment, then there's still so many other factors at play in there. Yeah? And so she said, if you take responsibility back and back and back, you are at beginningless time. And it's true. So blame really is useless, isn't it? Yeah. So if you see things as, as dependent on previous things, then when are you ever going to find an initial moment that you can say is the origin of this whole big mess? You can't do that because everything has its own causes and conditions. And I remember one of the inmates that I was corresponding with, he was in for 20 years for, because he was a huge drug dealer. And he told me while he was in prison, he started, looking at the exact situation in which he had gotten busted, and then started looking back, okay, what caused him to make that decision to, because he had been out of the country and he came back in and he was going to do one more big deal, and that was the one when he got busted. And so what was it at play there that made him make that decision to do that one last big deal? And then what were the decisions before that got him involved in the drug business to start with? And he told me that he started tracing things back, and he could really see certain decisions or certain choices or certain actions he engaged in, even when he was very, very little, that didn't seem like they were very important. But standing from the viewpoint of now, looking back, he saw, when I was 8 years old, I chose to do that, and that made me, more susceptible to this way of thinking. So then I chose to do that. And that helped me to meet this person who said something about this and that. And then I was open to listening to what that person said, which got me to do that. And then I met this, and just see how so many things, many of them seemingly, very inconsequential, got him to that 20-year prison sentence. So in the same way, if we start tracing things back, because this question arose in terms of the impasse in Washington, D.C. right now, what's the cause? That, instead of blaming people, that everybody should accept responsibility and then we don't get angry at people. But we still, when we start searching back, there's so many causes and conditions that make so many things happen. Like yesterday you were saying that you read that over the summer already some people were planning this showdown. Some of the Republicans were planning on making a big issue out of, the Affordable Care Act when it came to the, passing a budget. But then it didn't just start there. I mean, and then other articles in the newspaper, like tracing it back to when Gingrich was, Speaker of the House, and he was the one who started these kind of showdown tactics. But then it didn't start just there. There were like all these things that happened before it. Yeah? And how come, Greenwich started to think in a certain way, and how come people responded to him in a certain way? And we just wind up with infinite conditioning, don't we? And infinite dependence. And so in that kind of view, rather than get angry and blame, just to say, whoa, look at all these different factors, and here's what I'm responsible for, and here's what I want to change, and here's perhaps where I can help other people change, but, when we want to help other people change, have no expectations. Because as soon as you think that you're going to get somebody else to change, you're setting yourself up for a lot of anger and disappointment. So it's got to be, I can go and offer this and see what happens. I can't control anybody else, but I can offer what I have to offer and hope that it's helpful to somebody else. Okay? But the point here is that we can engage in all these things, seeing the vast interdependence, without getting angry at anybody. Okay? And at the same time accepting responsibility and not skirting out of things. Okay? So we can do this in our personal life as well as when we talk about the situation of the country or the situation of the world.